This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
If you're passionate about evaluating talent, building rosters, and making a program better from behind the scenes, there's a growing need for you in college football personnel. But this side of the profession is competitive, like the coaching side of it, and not always well-defined. Today on The Next Move, presented by Coach Portal, we're talking about how to navigate job opportunities and career growth in scouting and in personnel at the college level. If you haven't already, sign up for your free 6-month trial at Coach Portal. Upload your resume, highlight your experience in evaluation and operations, and stay visible to hiring staffs. Go to coach-portal.com, enter the code CCPodcast, and make your move. Joining me today to discuss these topics is Darrius Sims. He's the Director of Scouting at Middle Tennessee State University. Darrius, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be on the show.
So, Coach, let's get some of your tips for growing in this part of the profession and on the personnel side.
I think for me, and I could just basically talk about my experience on basically how I grow, I think the relationship piece of it was important for me to kind of lay that foundation and trying to build my tree to where I can pretty much network my way mixed with also hard work and showing my proof to where like I can land myself these jobs. So I think the biggest thing for me, I just use relationships and use genuine relationships to kind of obviously get to where I'm going, but also let my work show the majority of that once I'm in the door. I think for the most part, this role here and like in this industry, like you never know where your start is going to be. So pretty much being intentional with your career path and just pretty much trying different things, but also just honing in on something that you probably be good at, whether it's, I guess, from the coaching side or the scouting side, anywhere you can get your foot in the door, man, it's pretty much helpful. And, just kind of being confident. I think this profession right here, as far as like scouting and, recruiting, especially evaluating, it's all about confidence and pretty much clarity. You want to be clear on what you kind of see in the sense of, the traits and the intangible things, but also have a confidence behind you like, hey, I did my research. I pretty much know my stuff, so I'm very confident in this kid. And, the biggest thing about this profession is it's all basically what ifs or, projections in a sense, right? So I would say like 50% you're right and maybe 50% you're wrong. But I think you really want to make sure you take the more calculated risk and finding information behind that prospect, whether it's a trait or speed time, things that you pretty much can go back on and live on, rather than taking a prospect that doesn't have anything that comes with them. So those are pretty much some of the things that I kind of recommend when it comes to this profession.
I know for you, it's about working with all sides of the ball, right? You have to build that trust. You have to know the staff, understand their needs as well. What recommendations do you have in that area?
Listening and being an active listening in that aspect. Obviously, as a director of scouting, obviously me seeing a lot of talent, I'll have to put my feelings aside and put my pretty much agenda aside and pretty much hone in on what the coaches want and what he sees and what he wants in that room, because he is coaching those players. It's more of like a balance in a sense. I don't necessarily agree with all the coaches, which is pretty much a common thing around here, but I also share my perspective and share my view and pretty much give them another perspective on that, because I think most of the time coaches are looking at football players and football as a whole, like what they can do for me from a scheme standpoint. I'm more of a trait and redeeming talent and pretty much movement skill evaluator. So it's just kind of giving that half and half of like, hey, this is what I see from a scouting side, from a movement side, and pretty much this is how it can go into your scheme and how they can fit. So it's kind of a happy balance, but just honing in on what they want and not veering off. If you don't find it, then it's time to kind of find it again. Or if you bring a wrong product, then it's trying to find like, okay, what can I do right? What can I do better? And finding that. So it's just pretty much finding what they want, where you want to kind of be at.
What was your first step into the scouting or the personnel side, and how did that come about?
So I got my first start at Vanderbilt, and at that time wanted to coach. I had the bug of coaching. I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be a DB coach. And for the most part, that's where I wanted to be at. But at the time, Vandy didn't have any GA spots or spots that I can come in as a coach. So they gave me the opportunity of being a scouting assistant. It's when I kind of went under Darrius Sims, Brandon Jones. Both of those guys are director of scouting or in the GM at Colorado and Boise State, and also under Darrius Sims. So they gave me an opportunity to seek employment and pretty much have a job while I wait on that GA spot. And then all of a sudden I just fell in love with the progress and the procedures of evaluating and finding talent and, looking at skill sets to where it can fit the program needs and wants as a position standpoint. Vandy really gave me my first start. Before then, I was coaching high school ball at Milton up in Texas. And then from there, man, they kind of brought me down and pretty much showed me the ropes of player personnel where I am now. So that's where I got my first start.
What's one mistake you see people making when they're trying to get into this side of the game?
I think it's the nurturing relationships, man. I think not really, nurturing and building relationships. I see a lot of guys pretty much, expect a job within that first year of meeting somebody and from another program, which is pretty much slim from the city standpoint. So I kind of look at it as like, growing a plant or pretty much watering or growing a plant, right? So you want to pretty much pick a seed, right? You want to pick somebody that you kind of want to grow or want to grow up, like in a sense, right? And then for the most part, after you kind of found that seed, you got to water it. You got to make sure checking in, not just for when you want something, but just like, hey, how you doing? Like, hey, if they got kids, happy birthday to kids, or if they got a birthday, anything that kind of can make you stand out in a sense. I recommend genuine relationship. That's what kind of helps it out. When you're done, start picking the seed, you water it, and then you check on it, every so often. As plants that we know, like they need that love and care and that check on. So I just take it as people, man. I just think nurturing relationships is where people kind of not follow up and not follow through and then kind of expect like, hey, what's going on? I need a job. But like you really haven't watched that plant grow and nurture that plant enough time to where like you can see your fruits of your labor from a year later. And I think that's what kind of one of the things I did with me is just like constantly checking in on people periodically. Hey, how you doing? Happy birthday, Merry Christmas. Those things are very, very much thought out of, and people appreciate that at the end of the day. So I think the biggest thing is not nurturing relationships. It's one of the things that I kind of see guys not doing.
What advice would you give someone trying to grow in the player personnel or recruiting space?
I think for me, it's, again, for one, just get your foot in the door. However that may look, I think every path looks different. I've been around people whose paths are totally different from mine. I had the player initiative. I've seen people with, the student assistant. I've seen people who went to football as a QC and GA. I've seen people who come from high school. So I think the biggest thing is getting your foot in the door first. And pretty much now you can navigate in spots and navigate where you want to be at. But I think the initiative is getting your foot in the door and not being afraid to go and take chances on situations that you might not have a paying job in the first, couple of months to a year. But the experience is the real currency that you're trying to seek in that aspect. So I think that is the biggest thing for me, is just getting your foot in the door. And then once you're foot in the door, you'll be able to get into other doors that you see fit. That fits you.
Coach, I appreciate you taking the time and giving us some insight into some of the things on the personnel side. And want to wish you and the Raiders the best of luck here this season.
Man, I appreciate you having me on the show, man. Thanks a lot.
College football scouting and personnel is a competitive world, but there's real opportunity for those who are prepared, persistent, and professional. Stay ready, build your resume, and let your work speak for you. Sign up today at Coach Portal and take advantage of your free 6-month trial. Highlight your recruiting, evaluation, or ops experience and get in front of decision makers. Go to coach-portal.com, enter the code CC Podcast, and make your next move.